Ahoy there, Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another episode of the Frigate Pilot's Manifesto, the series that aims to teach you everything you need to know about the different frigates in EVE Echoes. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at the Sansha's nation Succubus, which is one of the pirate faction frigates in EVE Echoes, and boy is this a fun little ship. Not only does it look really cool as a spiky little laser bug that it is, it's also very popular as it's both shield tanked and gets some really powerful bonuses to its afterburners. So, what we're going to do in today's video then is have a look at what this ship can do with its attributes and fittings, have a look at a couple of different ways to fit it, then we're going to take it out and fly this into some PvE and PvP content and showcase that to the best of our abilities. Now if you do enjoy this video, let me know by hitting like on it, sub to the channel for all things EVE Echoes, ding that notification bell so you never miss an upload, and of course let me know what ships and topics you want me to cover in future videos. If you do want to go the extra mile to help support this channel, you can join us over on Patreon, which I'm in the process of updating at the moment, and we have a Redbubble merchandise store, so if you've ever fancied representing the Catskull Academy, or indeed just the Silent Rose or the Catskull Cartel, you can do so by checking out various different t-shirts, hoodies, stickers, all that kind of jazz over on Redbubble. That said and done then, let's talk about the Sansha's nation Succubus. Sansha's nation are one of the 5 pirate factions currently available in EVE Echoes, conveniently here grouped up on the right hand side of the select faction screen, along with the other 4, the Blood Raider Covenant, the Angel Cartel, the Serpentis Corporation, and the Guristas Pirates. Now, whilst they're referred to as one of the pirate factions, they're technically not pirates, they are a rogue state that occupies the Stain region. They were founded over 100 years ago by Sansha, who wished to create a utopian society based around the exploitation of brainwashed slave labour and a small cybernetically enhanced elite. The nation, as it's called by its citizens, was destroyed by a Concord-led coalition of the Empires in YC-37, leaving only remnants behind. However, the survivors managed to band together and re-emerged in YC-105, gradually restoring its power and growing until launching a series of invasions into Empire space in YC-112. Basically, don't mess with all 4 empires. Sansha had this idea that by making sort of a neural implant chip, he could essentially turn most of his citizens into brainwashed slave labour, whilst using that same technology to cybernetically enhance the elites that ran above them. The other empires get wind of this, decide they don't like where this is headed, and decide to utterly eradicate Sansha. Now ultimately, they do fail, they kill Sansha himself, but they don't manage to wipe out the entire empire, and it does resurge. Kind of fortunate for us in a sense as capsuleers, because it means we get to fly some very cool ships. Now, if you are looking for Sansha's nation ships, you'll need to be heading to the Galactic South. As I said, their home region is Stain, so that's an area that cannot be claimed for sovereignty, as it's already claimed by Sansha's nation, but if you are looking for those anomalies, you can find them further south in areas like Catch, Esoteria, and Providence. You'll also find Sansha nation anomalies in Devoid, Derelict, Tash Murkon, and even Domain itself does have them, but if you're looking for those dead space anomalies, you'll need to head out into nullsec areas. And if you clear one of those dead space anomalies amongst the wreckage, you should hopefully get some Sansha's nation debris, which you can use to reverse engineer the blueprints for the Nightmare battleship, the Phantasm cruiser, and of course the Succubus frigate, which is what we're going to be focusing on today. Now the Succubus itself is a really cool looking ship. I do actually quite like this one. As I said, it's like a little squishy little laser bug. Ultimately, it's got this sort of spiked nose to the front of it, these 2 cute little red eyes. If anyone can tell me what those eyes are actually supposed to be, like clearly they're supposed to do something. Are they a sensor array? Are they, who knows what those actually are? And of course the spikes themselves I don't think actually do anything. I think those are genuinely actually a sensor array. Now, over the Christmas period, we also got access to this, the Snowfield Adventure skin, and I just adore this thing. Like seriously, that soft white colour, the metallic red, and sort of the Christmas parcel design on the top there. Oh, it's hilarious, and I did actually do a little sort of Sansha's nation, I put a Christmas hat on this thing to wish folks a Merry Christmas, which I personally thought was hilarious, but maybe I'm tooting my own trumpet there. Anyway, let's have a look at the attributes and fittings of this thing. So, the Succubus itself, power grid output of 96 megawatts, that is a very sizable power grid. It does need to be, because obviously we're going to be fitting lasers on here, plus we're going to be fitting some quite powerful shields, etc. This is a shield tank laser ship, by the way, spoiler alert, but we do actually have the capability of fitting a couple of different oversized modules, which we'll talk about later on. Now, of course, we have that same fitting profile as all of the other faction frigates. 3 high slots, 3 mid slots, 3 low slots, 3 combat rigs, and 3 engineering rigs, and you should find that is more than enough to fit in everything that you want to on a Succubus. This is one of the few ships that I don't tend to find that I'm lacking tank or lacking damage. It's a little bit lower than some of the other faction frigates on damage, but still very respectable overall, especially considering how insanely tanky this thing can actually be. Now, if we then look here at its defense, 4069 doesn't look like much to start with, but don't let it fool you. There are some tricks, and that we'll see later on, that take that into a whole new scary dimension. Most of that is on shields, 1333, with only 1010 on armor and 993 on structure, so this is primarily aiming at shields, and it does have some pretty good resistances across the board there. Obviously no electromagnetic resistance, but a fair amount of thermal at 20%, kinetic at 40%, and a little bit more than usual explosive at 55%. Now, the capacitor bank here is incredibly aggressive. 985 gigajoules is a sizable capacitor bank for a frigate, alongside a maximum capacitor recharge rate of 10.18 gigajoules per second. Now, as a comparison, the average frigate is around the 5 to 6 gigajoules per second mark, so it's almost double what most frigates can put out in terms of capacitor, which again makes sense when you understand that we're using lasers, which tend to be capacitor heavy, and we're also using shield tanking modules, which again tend to be a little bit more capacitor aggressive. Signature radius here is very much on the smaller end of frigates. It's not quite as small as the Dramiel, but it is right up there, literally. I think it's actually the same size as the capsule. I can never remember if the capsule is 24.5 or 25.4. I need to get that tattooed on my wrist or something as like a little cheat note for when I'm doing these videos. But 24.5 is a very small signature radius. And if we couple that here with a flight velocity of 414 meters per second, you'll see that speed tanking this thing is definitely going to be something that we can look into, especially once we start examining some of the bonuses that this ship gets. Now, its scan resolution of 697 is also pretty good. That's a nice fast lock-on time against anything that you happen to be fighting. If we look at the mass, again, our mass is less than 1,000,000 kilograms, which makes this quite a light ship, but it does have a very high inertia modifier of 2.4, which is right up there with the crew ore as making this fairly cumbersome, and certainly that is something that can cause problems in regards to certain modules, as we'll look at later. Now, if we go here into the trait descriptions and skill bonuses, being a Sansha's Nation ship, this has the roll bonus of the ability to fit shield field modules, and this was something that confused me for the longest time. Why on earth can these fit shield field modules? Ultimately, is this designed for group PvP so that you can protect your friends around you? I thought the Sansha's Nation Succubus was one of those ships that was excellent for solo PvP. Well, again, this may fool you, and we'll talk more about that when it comes to the fitting section. For now, though, we're going to move across to the typical faction frigate roll bonuses here, the skill bonuses, sorry. Of course, we get advanced frigate command and advanced small weapon operation. In this case, with the Succubus, that is advanced small laser operation. That's a 20% increase to small laser damage and a 7.5% increase to small laser tracking speed. Now, that increase to damage there, 100% increase to damage, means this thing ultimately runs as if it's running 6 laser turrets, which is a very big increase on DPS, and the tracking speed boost there really helps out on especially the short-ranged pulse lasers. Because of how fast the Succubus can go, this really helps the pulse lasers, because obviously they've got a fairly good tracking speed as it is. Adding an additional 37.5% on top of that is always going to be considered a good thing. That said, if you do want to use beam lasers, there is a fit for that we'll talk about as well. That again, this does help out considering how fast the Succubus can move and how beam lasers don't have quite as good tracking as perhaps would be needed. Looking at Advanced Frigate Command, however, you can see this is the one I was talking about. Plus 5% shield for each level of Advanced Frigate Command. That's an additional 25% shield on top of the already sizable 1,333, so you're getting another 25% on top of that. Plus, we're getting a 20% per level afterburner velocity bonus. Now, this means that rather than an afterburner doing, say, 150% increase, if you've got this trained all the way up to 5, so you're getting a plus 100% afterburner velocity bonus, that's a full 300% increase to your afterburner velocity. That ultimately means that the Sansha's Nation Succubus runs as if it's got a micro warp drive without any of the negative effects. A micro warp drive normally has about 500% increase to speed, whereas an afterburner has about 150. The micro warp drive, however, then chews up 25% off the top of your capacitor. Your maximum capacity is reduced by 25% just for having a micro warp drive fitted. The micro warp drive itself causes a massive signature radius bloom, and if you're caught in a warp scrambler, then you lose access to your micro warp drive. That gets switched off. Here with the Succubus, you're going to be using an afterburner. You're going to be getting almost as good speeds as you would out of a micro warp drive, but you get none of those negative effects. That makes the Succubus incredibly fast up close, where other ships may lose access to their micro warp drives. Thanks to warp scramblers, the Sansha's Nation Succubus can comfortably deal with that and not have to worry too much about warp scramblers. Now, before we take a look at any of the actual fittings here with the Succubus, we need to understand why on earth it has that roll bonus of the ability to fit shield field modules. Now, if you've watched any of my videos on Guardian ships, you'll have a basic understanding of what a shield field module actually is and what it does. For those of you who haven't, essentially this emits a very large bubble around your ship. In this case, with this one, the Mirror Small Shield Field Module, it's got an optimal range of 7.5 kilometers. That is the radius of the sphere that is emitted. Now, any friendly ships within that sphere, essentially you take the damage on your shields instead of them taking damage. It redirects it all to you. And as a bonus for this, you get a 50% increase to your shield resistance. Means you are a much tankier ship when you have it activated. It does come at the downside of you having a 500% increase to your signature radius, but another point to note is that it takes up no power grid at all, 1 megawatt of power grid, and it doesn't use capacitor to operate. Instead, it uses fuel, so you'll need to have something like plasmoids in your cargo hold in order to operate this. Now, the reason that we have this on the Succubus isn't necessarily to help protect people in a small PvP gang, although that is definitely a legitimate use for it. No, rather it is more leaning into that shield resistance bonus at the bottom there of 56%. Now, I've run the numbers here, and if we've had a look here, this fitting runs with an electromagnetic screen reinforcer here at the bottom. Just to explain that, that's giving 40% electromagnetic, but normally these are our resistances. I've run the numbers here, and if you look here, we've got a standard resistance of 40 electromagnetic, 20 on thermal, 40 on kinetic, and 55 on explosive. Now, when we activate the shield field module, these go up to 71% electromagnetic, 65% thermal, 74% kinetic, and 80% on explosive. If we activate an adaptive invulnerability field by comparison, which is the standard low slot module, that only gives us 62 electromagnetic, 49 thermal, 62 on kinetic, and 71 on explosive. And if you really wanted to go massively into the tank here, and you fitted both the shield field module and an adaptive invulnerability field, you'd be looking at a total of 83% electromagnetic, 78% thermal, 83% kinetic, and 87% explosive resistance. That is a maddening amount of resistances to this ship, thanks to that shield field module, essentially. Ultimately, for the most time, you're going to want to be trying to speed tank with the Succubus, but there are occasions, obviously, when you're going to be hit with multiple Weber fires, etc., and you do start to take a lot more damage because you are not actually speed tanking efficiently anymore. In those situations, that's when you would activate the shield field module and boost up your resistances instead. If you're already getting hit, it doesn't matter that you've got a bigger signature radius. All that matters is that you can reduce the amount of damage you take until those threats are neutralized. Then you can switch the shield field module back off and return to speed tanking. Now, with all that said and done, let's have a look at a couple of actual fits then for the Succubus. Now, as I mentioned, there are a couple of different fits here that I want to showcase for the Succubus, and the first one, which I also mentioned earlier, is using beam lasers as web kiting. Now, essentially the idea here is that we keep our opponent at arm's length with our stasis Weber fire. We keep them at the range we want, not allowing them to get too close. We can scramble them at that range as well, and of course we maintain the optimal range here of the beam lasers as perfectly as possible. 13.75 kilometers is the optimal range here of those beam lasers. We want to be orbiting at 13 kilometers. Now, that does mean that for this build to work, you are going to need to have a warp scrambler and a stasis Weber fire, both with significant enough range to operate at 13 to 14 kilometers. So I do recommend having the very best fit possible here. The aim ultimately is to orbit at 14 kilometers, keep shooting with those lasers. We've got the Predator Stasis Webifier here just to stop them getting too close, or a Predator Warp Scrambler in case they're going to be using a micro warp drive to try and close that gap. We've got the shield field module there for the additional boost to our resistances if we start to take too much damage, but the way that this actually speed tanks at those extreme ranges is thanks to us being able to fit a medium afterburner. Now, I normally don't recommend going oversized with afterburners, especially on a ship like this one that has a surprisingly high inertia modifier. Basically, when you fire up an afterburner, not only does it increase your speed, so yeah, it's cool seeing 406% speed increase here on the Succubus, but that comes at the cost of adding all of that extra weight that you see there, and the higher that weight is, the inertia modifier needs to be able to cope with it, and a 2.4 or whatever it is, 2.9 inertia modifier here on the Succubus is a very high inertia modifier, and thus does not cope very well with that additional weight. For close range brawling then, the medium afterburner means that we are no longer actually capable of maintaining a solid orbit, and it chews up a lot of capacitor in order to do so. But here, where we're orbiting at the 13 to 14 kilometer mark, where obviously our need to turn sharply is greatly diminished, the medium afterburner gives us a massive amount of speed increase without chewing up our the top of our capacitor or giving the signature radius bloom like a micro warp drive does, and it leans nicely into that Succubus roll bonus of the extra velocity there from the afterburner. This basically means that this thing's comfortably speed tanks at a 13 kilometer range, which obviously your angular velocity normally wouldn't be too great at 13 kilometers. We then have a C-type adaptive invulnerability field, which just again leans in with that shield field module in the worst case scenario as increasing our resistances. With this active again, and with just this active without the shield field, we've got a 62% electromagnetic, 49% thermal, 62% kinetic, and 71% explosive resistance. If that's not enough, then yes, you can activate the shield field module and boost those up into the high 80s. But for the most part, you'll find the adaptive invulnerability field is more than adequate. Finally then, a Centum C-type heatsink is our weapon upgrade module. Of course, fitting this increases our damage by both increasing the flat damage and dropping the activation time, and then you can activate the heatsink for additional activation speed and additional damage. Now, the rigs here are the same for both of these ships, so the both fittings that I will be showcasing are utilising the same rigs. If you do care about the other one, then obviously just remember it is the same. We're going for 2 laser burst aerators to start off with. These are the highest DPS rig for any laser ship. Ultimately, using burst aerators is better than 2 burst aerators is better than a burst aerator and a collision accelerator, but the top way to get DPS would be 2 burst aerator, 1 collision. Why haven't I done that? Because I want to plug that electromagnetic hole in the resistances with an EM screen reinforcer. 40% additional shield resistance, that's already been included in all the calculations that I've mentioned. These are actually surprisingly cheap on the market, although now that I've said that, watch as the price increases. They are well worth fitting because they do mean you take a lot less damage from all types of, well, for any type of weapon that deals electromagnetic. Then for the auxiliary thrusters here in the low slots, I've got 1 auxiliary thrusters, 1 polycarbon engine housing, 1 semiconductor memory cell. Those are our engineering rigs. Obviously, auxiliary thrusters give us additional flight velocity. That is then multiplied nicely by the afterburners and its bonuses. The polycarbon engine housing helps us reach the maximum speed of our afterburner that little bit faster by lowering our inertia modifier, and it helps us maintain orbits. And a semiconductor memory cell just helps us maintain a little bit more towards capacitor stability. Obviously, very good capacitors on this ship to start with, but we are running shield modules, we're running an oversized afterburner, and we're firing lasers. Everything on this ship is using a lot of capacitor. It needs every little bit of help that it can get. Now, as I said, the aim here is you pick your target, you orbit at exactly 13 to 14 kilometers, firing those beam lasers, scrambling them and webbing them to keep them at arm's length while you do so. And you'll find that you're doing a decent amount of damage here, 334.38 DPS. This is, of course, on fulmination that I'm showcasing this. So I do have expert small laser operation 5 and expert small laser upgrade 5. But you'll see that when we come to showcasing this later on the live server, my DPS is still more than adequate. Those skills don't add much more once you've achieved the basic scores here. Once you've got advanced small laser operation to 5, getting it all the way to expert 5 doesn't actually increase your DPS more, if all that much. If you're using, say, the standard meta level 8 lasers, and you want to upgrade those to the dead space lasers, that is a much better use of your ISK and your time. You'll find that you do actually get a lot more DPS by upgrading from meta level 8 to meta level 11 than you would from going from advanced small laser operation to expert small laser operation. Now, the second build that I want to showcase, and the one that we're going to focus a bit more on in regards to the combat demonstrations later on, is an up-close and personal pulse laser brawling fit. Now, of course, that means our high slots are going to be pulse lasers. How did you guess? C-type small pulse lasers, Senti in this case, because if we're going to be using a Sansha's Nation ship, we may as well be looking at the Sansha's Nation dead space gear. Am I right? Just feels natural. Anyway, pulse lasers compared to beam lasers. Pulse lasers obviously have a higher DPS, higher damage, but this does come at the cost of range. Here you can see the small pulse lasers have an optimal range of 6.56 kilometers. That's not actually as short as you might think. It's still pretty long range for an optimal range, but it then has a very short and sharp accuracy fall off, 3.38 kilometers. That means at 10 kilometers we're doing 50% DPS, and at 14 kilometers, well, we may as well have the guns turned off for all it matters. Save your capacitor, you're not going to be doing any damage from that range. The flip side of this, though, is that we do have a very high tracking speed of 660, partially thanks to the Succubus's advanced small laser operation bonus of 7.5% small laser tracking speed per level, obviously 37.5 with full level 5 training in that. Now, obviously, when you're speed tanking something up close, you have a very high angular velocity, and if you've got a high angular velocity, due to the law of symmetry of angles, it means that your target has a very high angular velocity too, and it's quite common to watch people try and speed tank with something only for their own weapons to be missing constantly. That tracking speed bonus here means that this does not happen with the Succubus. Those lasers are able to hit their targets and apply that damage pretty effectively. Now, this does mean that because we're going to be so close, we have had to swap out that medium afterburner for a small afterburner. Remember, the medium afterburner, of course, gives us a massive increase to our mass, and thanks to the Succubus having a surprisingly large inertia modifier, that makes it very cumbersome. Simply put, a medium afterburner, you're not going to be able to maintain a good orbit at close range. So, we've swapped down to a small afterburner. We're still getting 406% flight velocity out of this, and with it active, I think our top speed, if I remember correctly, is about 3,238 meters per second, which is incredibly respectful. I mean, that is a very fast moving ship, and you've still got a very small signature radius. Notably as well, that's almost micro warp drive speeds, but again, without the ability for a warp scrambler to switch that off. And considering these days how many people run warp scramblers, yeah, you're going to be losing your micro warp drive if you're trying to use it at close range almost every time. The idea here being that you can orbit as if you've got a micro warp drive without warp scramblers switching it off. You still get a very high flight speed, which means that the stasis webifiers, if they have those fitted, also don't slow you down that much. Because quite frankly, if you're doing 3,238 meters per second and someone hits you with even a Predator stasis webifier, the one that drops you by 60%, you're still doing about 1,300 meters per second, which is still more than adequate to speed tank with. That is the power of the Succubus. But then what happened to the power grid? Because obviously the medium afterburner was taking up a load of power grid. You'd expect that by taking that off and swapping it to a small afterburner, we should have a whole ton of power grid back. Well, yes, that normally would be the case, but instead I've chosen to fit a Patriot medium shield extension device. Yes, a medium shield extender, because we can, because why not? By having this fitted to the ship, we're getting a shield increase of 2,359, and if I want to, we can activate that shield extension device for an additional 2,358 shield that will last for 25 seconds or until depleted, then has a 60-second cooldown before we can use it again. Now in PvP, this is an incredibly useful piece of equipment. It just means that we have some rather humongous shield tanking. Anything that wants to shoot at us has got an awful lot of shields to go through. In fact, if we have a look at the defensive here, you'll see that we're sitting at 5,000 302 shield hit points, based on the original 1,333 or whatever it was on the Succubus's basic stat page. That is a humongous increase. I mean, compare that to like the armor and the structure, it's literally 3 times the size, which is just mad. Massive amount of shields there, and again, if you have to activate that shield field module, you are going to be getting even higher resistances, and your shield just seems to last forever at that point. And of course, we're aiming to speed tank for the most part here, so we shouldn't even really need that shield. There is a downside to the medium shield extension device, and that is the fact that it increases our signature radius by 7 meters just for having it equipped. That can be a slight problem if you were going, I don't know, not 3,000 meters per second. But again, the Succubus doesn't care. Oh no, says the Succubus, I've just gone from 24.5 meters on signature radius up to 31.5 on signature radius. Whatever will I do? I'm still small as heck, and I'm still moving at 3,000 meters per second. What you gonna do? Basically, yeah. The third low slot is still the heat sink, and our mid slots are still a warp scrambler and a stasis webifier, but for slightly different reasons this time. The warp scrambler ultimately is there to switch off micro warp drives, and again for PvP to hold the target in place because we're gonna be in range of it. The stasis webifier is one that we could possibly consider swapping out. I like having a predator stasis webifier simply because it allows me to slow down something like an interceptor if that's what I'm up against, or if I'm up against a ship that is using drones, I can sit there and put the webifier on that drone to keep it at range and stop it getting within its optimal range and actively dealing damage to me. But you could easily swap this for a tracking disruptor or a guidance disruptor in order to screw with your opponent's weapon systems and make it even harder for them to actually do any form of damage to you whilst you're orbiting them at that very short range. Heck, if you're really worried, you could even put in something like a Vricolarcus, small energy Nosferatu there, to help fill up your capacitor and keep things on top if you're worried about getting muted or hit with several Nosferatus in certain storyline missions. As far as the rigs go, the rigs, as I said, are exactly the same as we were looking at in the beam laser fit. So we've gone for 2 laser burst aerators with an anti-EM screen reinforcer for the combat rigs, and for the engineering rigs we've gone for auxiliary thrusters, polycarbon engine housing, and a semiconductor memory cell. Reasons are exactly the same as we looked at there. Now, all that said and done, I think we've talked about the stats and numbers enough. Let's first of all take this out and have a look at how it works in PvE, and then we're going to jump back to the live server, and I'm going to showcase some PvP with the Succubus. Now, some of you guys mentioned that you'd like to see me compare the Succubus to the Drumiel, so I'm doing the exact same mission here as I was doing on the Drumiel, which is Sweet Poison, one of the Tech 10 storyline encounters, and because you guys wanted to see some more of the elites, I've gone straight here into Wave 3, where I've got a whole ton of elite ships have cropped up. There's a couple of elite Atrons, I think there's a couple of elite battleships, an elite battlecruiser. There's a lot of elites in this wave, and I want to showcase how we're going to handle this. So first things first, we move to a safe range, we lock onto our targets, and then we decide which we're going to go for first. Of course, I'm going to start with those small targets like the Atron 2 interceptors and the Catalyst Covert Ops. They're what we're going to go for. So I've hit the orbit on those, and I'm orbiting, aiming at a 6 to 5 kilometer mark orbit here. You can see, yes, I've got a scrambler on me quite nicely here from this Atron 2, Corelli Atron 2 there, you can see it's 7 kilometers, but a couple of hits is all it takes for that to go down. So next we're going to move on to is the Corelli Catalyst Covert Ops. For the same reason, they tend to be the ones that have the scramblers. Now you'll see that when I hit these, I do try and hit the webifier and the scrambler at the same time, so that if they've got a micro warp drive, I'm switching it off, and then the webifier is going to slow them down to a manageable speed. I can speed tank them and not worry about them hitting me back. And you can see that the Succubus here is quite comfortably, even with 2 webs hitting it and with a scrambler, I'm still moving at a good 1,300 meters per second. That's with 2 webs on me. 2 webs and 1,300 meters per second is still very much thing. And oh no, I've taken a small amount of damage. Whatever will I do? I'm currently orbiting quite comfortably still, taking out that Corelli Catalyst Covert Ops. Oh no, 92% shields, woe is me, it's terrible, terrible, I tell you. I've got massive shields, I'm not at all worried about any of that. My capacitor's not taking a hit, my shields aren't taking a hit. Heck, even with 3 webs on me, my speed was barely taking a hit. And as soon as I'm now down to 1 web, you can see that speed is shooting all the way back up. I hit nearly 2,000 meters per second there for a moment. I've still got a web on me, I've still got a scram on me. a couple of Nosferatus, and 5 sensor dampeners, because oh no, sensor dampeners, aren't they terrifying and scary? Seriously, NetEase needs to do something badly about sensor dampeners. They just don't do nearly enough, even in PvP, let alone in PvE. They are the most pointless E-War module currently, unless you're using drone ships, at which point they do have a minor use to them. I say minor, it's actually surprisingly powerful in the right situations. It's just incredibly situational. Anyway, you can see here we're now up against an elite Corelli Thorax Interdictor. Again, that's scrambling me. It's probably hitting me with a web and a whole load of other stuff, but I just don't care at this point. I've got so many ships firing at me. 16 ships in this wave, according to the overview there on the right-hand side, and they're just not doing a darn thing. I'm slowly pulling them down. The DPS isn't quite as high as it was in the Dramiel, but you'll see it's still more than adequate to comfortably take these ships out with a decent amount of time. It's only once we start hitting the battleships and the battle cruisers that things start to get a little bit dull in how long they take. And let's have a look at what else we have here. Got a couple of battleships at the top there. Any other elites? Yes, there's that elite Corelli Atron-2 Interceptor, and another elite there at the bottom, an elite Corelli. What is that one? Sorry, notification there. And that's an elite Corelli Myrmidon. Ooh, a Myrmidon. So again, we're just going to keep our orbits going. 16 ships shooting at me, 15 ships shooting at me now, and almost nothing is even coming close to hitting me. Like, there's no worries here, no discomfort at all. We're moving nice and quickly. In fact, I was out in a what do they call them? Not an Inquisitor, a Scout Anomaly. Crikey, the words completely failed me there. A Scout Anomaly earlier with a couple of guys from Void Federation. We were having some fun clearing one of those, and this thing took out one of the Angel Arbitrator Covert Ops nice and easily on its own as well. Just literally ran up next to it, orbited it at short range, obliterated its shields, took a bit more time through the armour and the structure as you'd expect, but ultimately took it out solo, pulled back to a safe distance, just strung out the rest, and then jumped in on the next one as well. Very powerful ship, just because of the sheer amount of damage that you do not take. You can see, scramblers don't affect me, webs don't affect me. I'm barely having my capacitor hit at all here, because I've got nothing in the way of active tank. I do have that shield extender if I need it. If I feel like I'm going to take a whole ton of extra damage, I can activate that. The only thing that really hits my capacitor in any way, shape or form is activating that heatsink. And as you can see, even then it doesn't really hit all that much. If I put the heatsink on and the shield extender, I drop down to 36%. And that gives me a whole ton of shields. It's giving me additional damage and DPS thanks to the heatsink. And you'll just see that my capacitor has no worries about that at all. I'm being hit with a Nosferatu, but that capacitor is still going back up quite comfortably. We're almost back at 50% already. There goes the shield extender, that's just run out. And I'm back to, I think, about 90% shields there. Really not a worry. And the capacitor is at 50%, and it's just going to keep recharging from there, because nothing anymore is really using much capacitor. My lasers are firing, my afterburner's running. Other than that, that's all the capacitor I'm using. And there we are, 56% capacitor, 57%. That is climbing gradually back up. And obviously, the lower your capacitor, the closer it is to 25%, the more aggressive the capacitor capacitance is. Its recharge rate, the more aggressive that recharge rate is, and it pushes it back up. You see, again, I'm already at 63% now, 64%. Shields are still not below 80%, quite comfortably handling this as we take out that last catalyst. Now, with that catalyst down, I believe that is all of our little small ships down. All the destroyers and frigates, I think, are gone. It's then cruisers and battle cruisers, which, as you've seen, do almost no damage to me at all. So I'm kind of at the point here where I don't want to keep rambling over and over again on this same bit of footage. You can see I'm taking very little damage at all. The shield extender allows me to absorb almost all of that. And quite frankly, if I want to, I've shown this before, I can double tap into space, and thanks to how fast the afterburner runs, I can easily outpace most of these scramblers and actually warp to safety if I need to. So the second that my shield tank looks like it's about to fail, once it hits about 20 to 15%, that's when I'll double tap into the distance and warp away to safety if I need to. As a spoiler alert, I am recording this post-fact. This is footage that I've recorded, and it's me commentating over it. I've completed the entirety of Sweet Poison here. Yeah, the second part is a little bit tougher in certain places. I think I had to warp away once, but it's still no real concern at all. Tech 10 storyline missions are certainly doable by the Succubus. Am I going to say that this is the ideal use of the Succubus? Probably not. It's better probably put to just doing encounter running, where it can clear those encounters very, very quickly, especially the Minmatar and the Kaldari ones. Minmatar and Kaldari shield tanked encounters go by very quickly with a Succubus, and you take almost no damage doing them at all, so you just literally complete an encounter, zip off to the next one, complete that, zip off to the next one. Remember, it's not always about those, those high-level storyline encounters. Sometimes the basic encounters, or the lower-level storyline ones, can be more lucrative. They offer less ISK per completion, but it takes a lot less time to complete, and there's less risk involved. Anyway, I do feel like I've showcased here that the Succubus can handle this more than adequately, so we're going to jump on now into PvP on the live server and showcase something a little bit more exciting. I'm out here in everyone's favourite pirate den, Tama, or Tamar, Tamer, whatever the heck you want to call it. Now, I've been roaming around nullsec for literally 2.5 hours at this point, looking for something, and I have found literally nothing. Oh, we have a frigate finally in this anomaly. Let's see what it is. Oh man, it's a Kestrel. It's a Tech 3 You know what, let's go for it. I almost feel bad about this, but after 2.5 hours, I just want to shoot at something. I had a Thrasher fleet issue in 1 that ran away the second I arrived and jumped to a gate, at which point it's like, oh, great, nothing I can do there. But okay, we've got a Kestrel here. I'm hoping not just that this is going to be like clubbing baby seals, maybe this will kick a hornet's nest. Hopefully this guy maybe has a bigger ship that you might bring along, or he's got some friends that will come out to defend him. Anyway, let's move that into a tighter orbit. We're going to open fire now with those beams, and we'll put the Scrambler on as well. Obviously, sorry, pulse lasers. Obviously, the Scrambler with a Kestrel, they tend to be micro-warp. Oh man, I can't even finish what I'm saying. That went down so quick. 3 shots. 3 shots was all that took to take a Kestrel out of action. What I was going to say was Kestrels tend to be kiters, so yeah, warp scramblers turn off the micro-warp drive. Anyway, what's this message that's popping up in the bottom left? Hopefully this is nothing too rude. Oh, Shane, thank you, Silent Assassin. That's really sweet of you to say, and a nice thing for me to pop up in a video there. Anyway, let's jump into another anomaly and see if we can find anything. Oh, we've got some wreckage. No, it looks like whoever was completing this one just abandoned at the last minute or got blown up by someone else and has now fled. Shame. Nope, nothing here, just a caracal. Let's go on to that next anomaly and see if we can find anything else. I'm hoping it's not just the Kestrel that I end up showcasing for this video. We'll have to see. Oh, we've got a cruiser. We have a cruiser. What is it? It is a caracal. Oh, Navy issue caracal. Awesome. Let's lock onto that, activate the afterburner, and start to orbit. We are going to scram that as soon as we can and web it. Open fire. And there we go, with the heatsink on as well. I want to try and get this thing down as quickly as possible in case I have kicked a hornet's nest and our Kestrel friend is going to come back in something bigger or with some mates. Nothing in a local yet though, so unless these guys are shouting out in corporation chat or whatever. Anyway, let's move to there. I'm going to lock onto that drone as well. This is, of course, an infiltrator, which is the electromagnetic drone. That's going to cause some problems to my shield tank, so I am just going to move onto it, lock onto it, have it there ready to target if needs be. Actually, as well, I'm going to turn off the Weber fire here and activate that then onto that infiltrator. That just means that hopefully I can keep that infiltrator a little bit further away so it's not doing as much damage to me. Anyway, so we are now through that Navy Issues shields, and we're taking not much damage back. I am getting some good hits though. That Weber fire is slowing me down quite a bit, and the fact that I'm taking this much damage does insinuate that actually this is something that is using perhaps something like the rapid missiles rather than mediums. So I'm going to put the shield field emitter on there. In fact, let's just leave it as it is. I don't think we need it. I think the speed tank is going to be big enough as it is. I think making myself a bigger target, even with the additional resists, the damage application from those missiles is not going to do anything, and I'm hoping I can just pull this thing down before the cavalry arrives, if there's any cavalry coming, and I'm kind of halfway hoping that there might be. Oh, local chat, I'm coming for you. I have a fancy ship for you. Mad Dog, that's not the guy I just killed, is it? Unless he's logged across to an alt or something. I don't know. But again, we've got a Hornet Nest kick there. Fingers crossed we do actually get something exciting for him to come out of. It's a fancy ship. I'm guessing that's some kind of faction frigate. But there goes that Caracal Navy issue. Shame. Let's get rid of the capsule, send you home on your way so you can jump into another ship nice and quickly. There we are. Scram you to stop you warping away whilst we get into range with the lasers. And blap, down you go. Cool. Well, let's see what this guy had in his wreckage, if there's anything cool. Ooh, medium Nosferatu. Oh, Gistum C-type medium shield booster. Yes, please. I will take that. I need to get a bit closer to the thing. I was actually talking earlier in our Alliance chat. I think Alex was asking, does anyone have a spare Gistum C-type medium shield booster? Well, now I do. So, yeah, let's just let Alex know there. C-type MSB. There we go. Shame, he'll enjoy that. Proves though, piracy can be quite lucrative sometimes. Anyway, let's move on then, just check the rest of these frigate wrecks. Anything interesting in either of these? No, not at all. So let's continue, move on to the next anomaly. I think we'll have a look. Let's just check what that actually was. So going to combat log, kills, Caracal Navy issue. What was he fitted with? Yeah, it was rapid missile launchers. Oh, shame, only Mark 5s. Gistum C-type medium shield booster, but only Mark 5 medium rapids. That's that's an unusual choice. I would have thought that most people tend to go for the weapons, you know, higher weapons than that, but I guess we're possibly looking at someone who is maybe sort of Tech, well, I've got to be Tech 6 to be able to fly the Caracal Navy. Should probably someone who is literally just a Tech 6 player. Anyway, let's move on then to the next of the anomalies here, see if we can find anything else that might be interesting to take out. I am interested to see if Mad Dog is holding up his end of the bargain and jumping through anomalies looking for me. That would be pretty sweet to see what special ship, what fancy ship it is that he's actually talking about. Nothing in this large anomaly. On to the next large anomaly, see what we can find. There we go. Just saying hi. There we are, CNI just dropped one. There we go, nothing in this either. What are the chances that there's going to be something in one of the level 2 ones? Like, seriously, again, that's probably going to be, like, you know, baby seal clubbing, but we'll have a look. You never know. You never know, it could be all kinds of stuff, and again, if Mad Dog is jumping around here looking for me, let's have a look and see. Let's have a look and see. Nothing here in this medium anomaly. Move on to the large one. It's probably going to be nothing. Probably going to be nothing, but it's just worth checking, I feel. We've got 52 people in local. I've only encountered 2 so far. And yeah, sure, some of those... Ooh! Oh! Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness, we have a stabber of some kind, and we have a Cinnable. Do I dare? Do I dare? Yeah, we do. Oh, I'm locked on. I'm scrammed. Oh boy, that's a lot of damage. Oh no. Oh no, mistakes have been made. Mistakes were made. Okay, so, yeah, let's activate the shields as much as we can, see if we can get to range and warp out of this. I think that's the Succubus gone. Oh my goodness, straight away in there, locked on by a Cinnable, and is that a stabber sniper? I'm not sure what type of stabber that is. It's a stabber of some kind, and down they go. Oh, nice. Well, I've always said that the boring part of EVE is making ISK, whereas the fun part is then losing all that ISK in a glorious explosion. And hey, I think that was quite a lot of ISK that I just lost. Let's actually have a look at what happened there in regards to my losses and the actual kill card. So, how much did I actually lose? What was that valued? 1.067 billion ISK. Okay, that was a fairly expensive loss for me. And I've just realised it's Silent Assassin, the same guy who was messaging me, thanking me for the Stabber Sniper video, blew me up less than 2 minutes later. Oh, what did I drop? Imperial Navy Heatsink went, the Mirror Small Shield Field module, Republic Fleet Warp Scrambler, congrats, that was quite nice. Out of my cargo hold, Sansha Ship Debris, nice. That was a good drop there, really good kill for you, mate. Very happy for you, that was really cool, great fun. Gistum C-type medium shield booster unfortunately did not make it. Sorry, Alex, I know I said I was bringing that back for you. It did not survive the journey home. Blame Silent Assassin for that one. But hey, what a fun little afternoon that was. Got a couple of kills, lost another Succubus. I don't know what it is about the Succubus. Succubus seems to be the ship that I struggle with the most to keep alive. I really enjoy flying it, and I use fits that a lot of other people talk about and recommend, but that's now the third Succubus I've lost. I've lost 2 worms, 3 Succubuses, 1 crew ore, 0 Dramiels to this point in time. That might be because I've not flown them all that much on the live server, at least. I've lost a ton on Fulmination, but on live I haven't lost a single Dramiel yet, nor have I lost a Daredevil. But hey, there we go. As I said, half the fun is losing it, and I do now get to showcase the cool looking skin there for the capsule now that I'm docked back at home. Epic. Thank you, Silent Assassin, for a great end to a fun video. Anyway, folks, that does just about wrap things up here for the Succubus. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this. Did you enjoy this? Let me know all that and more in the comment section down below. Happy sailing, and see you in New Eden.